على من لا نبي بعده محمد بن عبد الله صلوات ربنا وسلامه عليه. I was so make it very snappy, inshallah, because of the time. I was told to discuss managing financial crisis. Managing financial crisis.
Sorry.
A bit of noise somewhere.
Yeah, can everyone mute their mics, please, so that we don't interrupt Sheikh when he's talking, please? Thank you very much for your understanding. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, so managing financial crisis as Muslims. So I would like to talk about the fact that it is a religious duty to acquire wealth, right? It's a religious duty, I repeat myself, to acquire wealth. And then the fact that it's a religious duty varies in accordance with the rules of the Sharia. Jurists, and those are the scholars of fiqh jurisprudence, argue that there is an amount of wealth that is not just something you acquire because you find it pleasurable, right? The acquisition of wealth and in the usage of money, something you find pleasurable, but it is actually compulsory. It's a religious obligation in such a way that if one does not acquire such wealth, one will be a sinner, right? And then they said this is farudun, it's compulsory. What type of wealth is that? That wealth that would be sufficient for you, your family, is compulsory. Wealth that would be sufficient for you to cater for your needs as a person, and then to cater for the needs of your family, and then to also probably pay your debts. Acquisition of such wealth is compulsory on all of us. And then we have wealth that is mustahab. You have at the apex of Islamic rules, you have that which is compulsory. Then just after that, you have that which is highly encouraged but not compulsory. You do it, you have a reward. Acquiring wealth with which you can spend as charity, that is above your basic needs. The basic needs what I mentioned and said that is compulsory on everybody to acquire. Then that which is slightly above anything above your basic need, which you can do charity with, or probably increase the luxury you are in, will be deemed to be mustahab. Then we have wealth that is mubah, is permissible. We have 5 rules of the Sharia that governs our action: the compulsory, which is the wajib; the mustahab, which is the highly encouraged; the mubah, which is just permissible. And then we have the makruh, which is disliked; and then we have the haram. Now we have the mubah, wealth that we acquire to live in opulence and luxury. It is not haram, in as much as it does not violate any aspect of our deen or have a negative impact on our character. So somebody has sufficient wealth and decides that I want to buy the most luxurious car. I don't know the most luxurious car, but over there, but we'll talk about the Lamborghini, the Bugatti, and so on and so forth. So I said, no, it's haram. So why is it haram? And so because it is israf. No, it is not israf, in as much as one acquired such not to show pride. If it is acquired to show pride or to be boastful, it becomes either makruh or haram. So wealth that puts individual into a state of luxury. Luxurious items that an individual uses not in itself haram. It's what? It is mubah, permissible. I hope that I hope I've been able to pass across this. That you have 3 levels you have this 5 levels for the acquisition of what? Of wealth. That which is compulsory, with which you will need to cater for your basic right. That which is highly encouraged for you to acquire. That which is anything above your basic needs that you can spend in charity. And then that which is permissible, luxury and opulence, in as much as there's a need for it. And then you have the makruh and the haram. That is, whatever you acquire to show off or to boast or to show that you are wealthy, or which you acquired in ways that are haram, then this will be haram. Allah says on a Friday that some Muslims will campaign that let's have a holiday on Friday. No, that is not our way. On a Friday, because Islam does not want to encourage laziness. He said, look, when the adhan for Jum'ah is sounded, you leave your transactions, your businesses, you go to the masjid, you pray your Jum'ah. What happens after Jum'ah? Immediately the Salah is over, go onto the earth. فَانْتَشِرُوا الْأَرْضَ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ, and seek from the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even on a Friday, if you can acquire wealth, if you can acquire money, fine, go and do that. I said that to emphasize, we want to talk about managing financial crisis, but I want to give the background of the way Islam looks at money in itself. So even on a Friday, we're encouraged to seek wealth, and it is deemed to be part of the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And naturally, we love wealth. It's a natural instinct. We love wealth. Allah says, Al-malu wal-banu zinatul hayati dunya. Wealth and children are part of the beautifications of this world, the adornment of this world. What is not allowed is for us to seek wealth and at the expense of our deen or at the expense of our character. Allah says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ وَالْقَنَاطِرِ الْمُقَنطَرَةِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ إِلَى آخِرِ الْآيَةِ وَالْخَيْلِ الْمُسَوَّمَةِ. Allah says that naturally we've made it pleasing for people. We see it as an adornment, the acquisition, the satisfaction of their desire in women, in children, and in stored gold and silver, plenty of it. وَالْخَيْلِ الْمُسَوَّمَةِ, and horses and farmland and stuff like that. So naturally we love all these things. So in as much as it does not violate our deen, it is allowed. Like the verse I was reading, Allah says, وَالْأَنْعَامُ وَالْحَرْثُ ذَلِكَ مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. These are the enjoyments of this world. Allah says, وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ حُسْنُ مَآبٍ. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the best of reward. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of return. So this is the background of how the Muslim looks at wealth, right? It's like an instrument with which we acquire what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in this world of enjoyment. Because without wealth, an individual, I'm just striving to acquire it, an individual will fall into a lot of problems. And I'll cite the verse in Surah to Tawbah, around chapter 9, starting from, I think, 116th verse, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was telling Adam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was saying, فَقُلْنَا يَا Adam, we said, oh Adam, إِنَّ هَذَا عَدُوٌ لَكَ وَلِزَوْجِكَ. So shaitan is an enemy to you and to your wife. فَلَا يُخْرِجَنَّكُمَ مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ فَتَشْقَى. Do not allow shaitan to take the two of you away from this Jannah, so that you will not be in shakawa. Shakawa means being unfortunate, being in an appalling situation, and being in a state of outright suffering, in depression. Think of the negatives you can talk about. But this shakawa here, in fact, at times people who go to hellfire, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala don't make us one of them, are called shaqi. So, but the shakawa that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about in this verse is not about going to hell. Allah explained in subsequent verses. He said, "Inna laka alla taju'a fiha wa la ta'ra." Because if you are in al-Jannah, if you do not allow shaitan to chase you from this Jannah, you will not go hungry, and neither would you be naked. And that is why we emphasize that the image of Adam and Hawa being naked in Jannah is a Judeo-Christian stuff. Allah is saying that Adam and Hawa were not going to be hungry or naked in Jannah. Allah taju'a fiha wa la ta'ra. So you will not be naked, and neither would you not be hungry, neither will you be naked. وَأَنَّكَ لَا تَظْمَأُ فِيهَا وَلَا تَضْحَى. You will not be thirsty in it, and neither will you need to toil under the sun, right, to be able to get your daily needs, right? So here we are being told that these are the basic things, these things that Allah mentioned here: food, water, shelter, and shelter and clothing. These are the basic things every human being needs. And this was what Allah was referring to when he was saying that, look, if you leave Jannah, you have to work under the sun to acquire these things. So we need wealth to do this. So wealth is important. Money is important. Our finances is important to acquire all these things. Allah tells us, نحن قسمنا بينهم معيشتهم في الحياة الدنيا. This world that we are talking of, Allah says that He's the one that is solely responsible for distributing it to people. It's at times we feel that we acquire this thing by our degrees, our certificates, our skills, and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is that the primary giver, the primary agent responsible for us acquiring our wealth is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think of it, even from a rational basis. Apart from the verse I said, Allah says in Surah Zukhruf, so نَحْنُ قَسَمْنَا بَيْنَهُمْ مَعِشَتَهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. We are the ones that distributed and give each individual whatever he or she has of wealth and stuff. But you can also rationally assess this. You will realize that there are people you went to school together. They had better grades than you. Some are more qualified than you. And then what you have of wealth, they don't. And at the same time, there are people who are probably not as qualified as you are, and they have greater wealth than you. So realize that ultimately Allah is responsible for the distribution of wealth. Yes, we will strive to acquire this wealth because that is what our religion requires of us. At the same time, we will realize the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responsible for giving us whatever wealth He gives to us. If that is the case, mentioning the verse that comes after will make it clearer. Allah says in Surah Al-Baqarah, a very popular verse, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. Allah says, we will test you of something of fear and hunger, وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ, loss of money, financial crisis, وَالْأَنفُسِ, loss of life, وَالثَّمَرَاتِ, loss of crops, as a financial crisis. Allah says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. That is where we're going to give glad tidings to those who are patient. And then the next verse says, الَّذِينَ, those who are patient that we're talking about, that we're saying, give glad tidings to, الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَبَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. Because these are the people that when trials and tribulations come, they will say that, Inna lillahi, we belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to Him would we return. We belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to Him is our return. So, having given this background, that we're supposed to acquire wealth, and in the purpose of wealth, and in the ruling of wealth, and in the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ultimately responsible for the distribution of wealth, and the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can test us in this wealth, then we'll now come to what a financial crisis. Naqsim min al-amwal. Khawf, we will test you something of fear of tomorrow, what am I going to earn tomorrow? In fact, for a lot of people, the major problem we have is the fear of the future. That, look what I'm earning now, would it be able to, would it be good for me in the future? Will I not suffer the consequences? This is there. And hunger, and those basic things I mentioned in Surah Al-Tawbah, shelter, in stuff like that. The fear we have of it. And as naqsun al-amwal, the loss of money, right? The depreciation of purchasing power, inflation and stuff like this. These things will happen to us. Allah is telling us categorically, clearly, unambiguously that, look, these things are tests. One of the things that we will test people with on earth here. And then who are those who are going to be successful? Those who are going to be patient. Those when trial comes, they realize that, look, we and our wealth belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. So when these trials come, and this is where it is important, how do we undo it? How do we manage it? The only way to manage it is by being patient and realizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who brought the wealth that was with us before the crisis came, is the one that also brought the financial crisis, and is the one that will take it away. So Allah says, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا. With hardship, ease would come. Allah says, وَسَيَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ بَعْدَ عُسْرٍ يُسْرًا. After hardship has come, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring what? Will bring ease. And He told us in another verse that وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. Those are the days, these days of this. There are days that things will be in plenty, and there are days that things will be resources will be scarce. This is how it goes in circle around people. So when it comes, you're supposed to be patient. When it comes, you're supposed to be what? You're supposed to have hope that after hardship, ease would ultimately come. What are the errors people do when they feel the pangs of financial crisis? So I'm going to sort of arrange it the way, sort of a hierarchy of how dangerous these things are. Number one, and I'm sure, or I pray that none of us will fall into this category, people who will lose their head after because of the acquisition of wealth. When they feel that, look, what am I going to eat? What am I going to do? What my clothing? Look, I've got a family. Look, I need money. And they decide that, look, is there any way I can do this? Then they go diabolic. So, I mean, I'm sure all of us, or most of us are Nigerians, and we know the impact of Yahoo boys. internet fraudsters. But they don't stop at that. It's what we call Yahoo Plus, whereby they go diabolical, they go fetish to do what? To acquire money. And at times people say, well, all of them are false, all of them are superstition. The fact of the matter is that, our Sharia, Islam believes in the existence of metaphysical beings that we cannot apprehend with our senses, who are also rational beings who can do evil, can do good. So we believe that these things occur, and these beings can steal money, can get. So they go to these people and they commit shirk in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They commit shirk in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what? For money. So they don't care. So in Yoruba land where I am, you would find that they will tell you that, look, there's a type of sorcery or magic with which you can acquire money, in which you only live for probably 5 years. Some they say it depends on the amount of seeds of corn that a cock eats or something like that. So the thing is that, look, nobody knows when we're going to die. But the fact of the matter is this: what seems to be the case is that jinn will steal money for this person. Jinn don't print money. These creatures I talked about, they don't print money. They'll steal money for this person or get money from me. And after he apparently dies, it appears to be that he has died, but he actually has not died. They take him to a place and he begins to serve them till he dies, or serves their master till he dies. I usually mention a case to back this up. I think in the North Central, if I'm not mistaken, probably Niger State also. There was a man. I'm not going to go through the details of the story anyway. So he was deemed to have died, right? They buried him, and then some time later, I don't know, weeks or months or whatsoever, he was seen in the forest walking, could not talk, could not do anything, and then they brought him back to civilization. And then he told them that, look, he didn't die even on that day, that he was even present as they were preparing his funeral and stuff, but they could not see him, they could not hear him. And he was taken to a farmland where he was actually working, and he would have worked there, the free labor, and then the owner of the farmland would have been making a lot of money, right? And you have people like this. So people go diabolical, lose their Islam just to acquire a bit of wealth. So they throw away their iman, they throw away their faith, they go diabolical. Nothing people cannot do. Some of us will be aware of the news. Kidnap people, slaughter people, get the head of people. For what? Just to acquire wealth. So that's the apex of the evil people can do when it comes to acquisition of what? Acquisition of money. Then there are stuff that are also haram that people will go to. So you tell somebody, no, working with interest-based loans, interest-based transaction is haram. And at the point of need, the investor starts to give himself different factors. There are people who understand that, look, Islam frowns at usury, at interest in any way, in any form. But when the pangs of financial crisis comes, he begins to renegotiate this thing that, look, no, I don't have the opportunity to do this. Am I not supposed to do that? And then he goes ahead and goes into that which is haram, because he feels that, look, I have to maintain myself, and I've got a family, I've got children, I've got a wife, and stuff like that. Then he goes into that which is haram. So whether it's big haram, whether it's small, he just goes into it. Work that ordinarily the Muslim should not be seen to be doing, he does it because he feels that, look, this is the only way I can survive, and my finance is my life. Then he goes into this. So this is the other level, the other tier as regards this. May Allah protect us. One of those trials that a person can face, particularly a man who has a family, one of the trials he can face is a trial of the lack of purchasing power, financial crisis. I mean, you would almost lose respect with your wife, almost lose respect with your children. You can't pay your bills. Life becomes hellish. Especially if you are living in a place whereby things work. You're living in the West, whereby a lot of people do not get this. If you live in a society that works, then you have to pay for it. You want constant electricity, it takes money. You want the transport system to be squeaky clean, it takes money. So if you live in this environment, immediately you are impacted by financial crisis. It takes its toll on you immediately. And then you will need to drag out every ounce of patience that Allah talked about. That was Bashiri as-Sabirin. That this is the time for us to be what? To be patient. And it's time for us that this is the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would test us. It's not the time that one starts giving himself emergency factor that, look, yeah, there may be a circumstance whereby such factors may apply, but definitely we would even have given of ourselves the fatwa before we consult anybody. So also, we know that in the family. The husband is responsible for provision. Allah says, brothers usually cite this verse as a verse of authority. And yes, it is a verse of authority. But at the same time, it's a verse of responsibility. That is, look, the men are in authority over what? Over women. And Allah explained one of the reasons they are in authority is what? You spend on the woman. Allah says, وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ كِسْوَتُهُنَّ وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. You're responsible for feeding and providing shelter and providing clothing for your wife and children. Allah says, أَسْكِنُهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثِ سَكَنْتُمْ مِنْ وُجْدِكُمْ. House your wives wherever you are also living. Provide shelter for them. All these things will take money. In a situation whereby you are unable to provide, and also we may have wives misbehaving, disrespecting the husband. But this man has been doing all these things all this while. Before the crisis came, he made sure that there was nobody went hungry. He provided as he had as his ability could handle it. There was food on the table. There was a roof over our head. There was clothes on our back. But then the crisis came. And there was just complaining that, look, you have to do more, you have to do that. Some men will do 3 jobs. And at the same time, it doesn't work out. There becomes a crisis in the home. So I want to send money home, I want to do this, I want to do that. No, we are also expected to show patience at this time. It's a different thing if one's husband has and is not doing. That is criminal. If one's husband has and is not doing, then the Sharia allows the woman to even take from his money without his knowledge. When a woman went to complain to the Prophet, he said, my husband Abu Sufyan rajulun Sheikh, la utini ma yakfini wa waladi. He's stingy, he does not give to me what is sufficient for me and my children. But what did the Messenger of Allah tell her? He said, go and take from his money. Because the man is responsible for the woman. Right? That's a different case. If the man has, but he's not doing. Now the man does not have. It's just not there. And he's not lazy. He's trying his best. So in this circumstance also for us as females, we need to have a bit of understanding. We need to have a bit of patience as we handle the crisis. As I said, Allah mentioned that فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. After hardship, there will be ease. So, but what are those things that one can do? Of course, we would have been doing this before the crisis came. These are things that ordinarily the Quran, the Sharia told us to do before the crisis came. But we should mention it anyway. Maybe Allah SWT will make it beneficial. So look at the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. You recall that the king had a dream. And in his dream, he saw 7 fat cows and thin cows. And the thin cows consumed the fat cows. So also the ears of corn or wheat or barley whatsoever that consume the thin ears of wheat or whatsoever that consume the fat ones. And then they went to Yusuf alayhi to ask him what the meaning of the dream is. And we know the story. So the response of Yusuf alayhi is what I want to appeal today. So when they asked Yusuf, what are we going to do? And he said, Qala, Surah Yusuf verses 47, 48. Qala tazra'una sab'a sinina da'aba. فما حصدتم ففذروه في سنبله إلا قليلا مما تأكلون. Yeah, Yusuf alayhi economic policies. These are ulama derived rules from the Sharia. It's saying that, look, تزرعون سبع سنين دأبا. For 7 years, you guys should continuously plant. Al-Qurtubi in his tafsir mentioned that some scholars took this as an instruction from Yusuf. He understood that the dream of the king was a premonition to a huge financial crisis that's going to strike the Egyptian kingdom. And he said, you should plant for 7 years consecutively, massive famine. Da'aba. Fama hasotum. When you get the what's it called? I don't want to use the word proceeds. When you reap the harvest, at the time of the harvest, فَذَرُوهُ فِي سُنْبُلِهِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا مِمَّا تَأْكُلُونَ. I mean, these are I mean, of course, finance and economics are more advanced. We've got all these charts and all this international system, all this Wall Street and stuff. But it all boils down to these basic things. He said that, look, do not watch when you these 7 years that you are making a lot of good harvest. Do not consume everything. Rather, store these things. Store your proceeds in their in their, is it husk? I don't know the English word for it. So it's a way of preserving crop. So he's telling us about preservation and conservation and storage here. So look, at the time of plenty, you save. At the time of plenty, when we save, then the only thing he said, what you should do is that do not illa qalila mimma ta'kulun. Only eat the little which will be sufficient for us. So a wise company or a family unit would save from where for it's absurd for one to assume that, look, let's spend everything. Allah is the one that provides risk. Allah provides risk. So let's just no. Yes, in truth, Allah provides. But this is the Prophet of Allah telling us about macroeconomics, or microeconomics about as case maybe. And the Messenger of Allah at times will have the food of a year stored for his household. So we save from when things will not be as rosy as they ought to be. So he said, "Illa qalila mimma ta'kulun." Just the only one that you should not save is the little you eat. ثم يأتي من بعد ذلك سبع شداد يأكلن ما قدمتم. Then 7 years of famine would come. Maybe because the rains will not come, and the earth will dry up. And of course, agriculture is the mainstay of survival. I mean, that is the primary way with which you survive. When the rains will not come, then there is problem. So he said, now, when those days of famine come, then what you have saved, you consume them. And here also, we look at the way that Yusuf handled it. He said, what you have saved for those rainy days, you consume them. He said, so also, what you saved for those rainy days, people have been saving for 7 years, then they were eating little. They were like in a form of austerity, like we were preparing for the financial this and storing everything they had. And then the 7 years of famine came. He said, no, what you store, you start eating. At the same time, do not eat up everything. Mufassirun mentioned that what it means by Qalila mimma tusinun is that you would have to keep what you will plant after the years of famine ended. That if you don't eat up all your savings. So he's saying that, look, you curtail your expenses. And you have the inflow, you have the outflow. When the inflow starts to drain up, then you have to control the outflow. This happens to a lot of people at times. It's oblivious. As the money comes, it spends. No plan, no savings, no nothing. I'm not a financial person. I'm just going to the Quran and I'm bringing these rules out and say, look, this is what the Quran is saying. And I think I've interviewed people who do finance, and then this will tell you that, look, you have to have a percentage. I've forgotten 50, 30 something. I don't know. If you have a financial person, they would know. They say 50 something, 30 something. They have a formula that. But this is just Quranic exegesis. That even when you are consuming what you save, you must leave capital. Do not eat into your capital, because after those days of austerity, those days of financial crisis, you have to go back to business. You will not destroy your capital and consume it all, or destroy your means of production and consume it all. Rather, you still have to keep a part of it. That the savings you are consuming now, you have to keep a part of it. So keep a part of it, so that when those years of crisis come, you still have something to plant. And when it comes to, if it is money, you still have something to invest in. And it said, and then a year would come, and then the rains will come back. As some of the Mufassirun mentioned, the rains will come back. And then you guys will become so wealthy. You have so much product. You would have so much crops, so much harvest, that you would even be pressing wine. You'll be pressing oil, because these are deemed to be luxury stuff. If there was no food, you will not talk about wine and oil and stuff. You will consume your seeds, right? So said then a year will come. As I said earlier, so people will become they go back to the way they were, and then because they did not eat up their capital, right? They did not consume everything. Then they go back to the form that they were. Also emphasizes the fact that hard times do not last. Hard times do not last. As I said, and then a year would come that there will be plenty again. So much so they would also be able to have luxury items like wine and stuff. So the financial, I don't know. I think it's all over. Double-digit inflation in some places, the cost of energy, COVID, the war in Ukraine, the COVID, in the supply chain problem in China. For some people invested in Bitcoin, the Bitcoin collapse. All these things came together at the same time. But the fact of the matter is that these things may turn out next year or the year after. It may not even be up to what? The 7 years of Yusuf. We are talking about 14 years, 7 years of plenty, 7 years of extreme famine. And they were not knocked out. People, the brothers of Yusuf had to come to Egypt because they saved. They were even able to sell what they had. They were able to sell some of what they had. When famine was afflicting all the surrounding land, because they've saved, they were able to sell. We can still give to some of you guys for a fee, of course. And ultimately, for every one of us, of course, this is the story of Yusuf, but for every one of us, there's always going to be farj at the end of the day. There's going to be success. Things will change ultimately. So what is essential is what we do when the crisis is on ground. When a crisis is on ground, when we feel the pangs of the financial crisis, we should not allow it to destroy our family. To the extent that we start saying that, look, you're even a useless person, you're a useless husband, you cannot provide for us. Look at what your mates are doing, for God's sake. It's not also, I mentioned the wife aspect. Also, when men lack financial power, then they start taking it out to transfer the aggression of the emptiness of their pocket to their wives. Every small thing, it flares up. Not because the wife has done anything wrong, but because even the slightest error cannot be tolerated because he doesn't have money. A lot of men come home and take it out on their wives. What's the crime of the woman? What's the kind of crime of the children? Right? It's about sustaining our iman when financial crisis come. Sustain our iman, sustaining our personality, our character, our homes. Having to understand that ultimately, it's not going to be like this forever. Ultimately, there's still going to be success. There's light at the end of the tunnel. As I say these things, really, some of us, it's easy for you to tell people that, look, things are going to be good. Ultimately, people who are in it will feel that, no, you don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I understand. But if this is what the Sharia requires us to do, tough times do not last. There's always going to be succor at the end of the day. It depends on the way we handle ourselves during that crisis. We get more religious, pray to Allah more, focus on our faith, beg Him to preserve us, preserve our faith, and then stay away from that which is haram, and use it as an opportunity to even come closer with our family, control our expenses. That's another very important thing. If you do not have, you don't need to put yourself into any crisis. A lot of people would have problems because it's afraid what people would say. That look, you're in Canada and you could not assist us. I don't have money. So, but you're in Canada, yes, they do not block money on the trees in Canada. If you do not have, you do not have. It's a problem people have. They are afraid of what people will say. People will not be responsible for my family. They're not going to be responsible for my daily expenses. I am responsible for it. They will not want to let people know that they are having a crisis, and then the debt profile keeps increasing and increasing. Interest-based loan does not solve crisis. It compounds it, makes it worse, right? May Allah SWT keep us firm, even on a Sunday every day. And I hope in the short time I've spent with us, I've been able to pass across the little I can deliver. I will pause and now and take questions if there are any. If there are none, I would like to call it today. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, ya Sheikh. Thank you very much, sir. Jazakallah khairan. It's always very wonderful to have you. This is what they call short and sweet. In fact, may Allah continue to bless you. May Allah continue to bless your knowledge. You touched on very, varying topics, especially where you started from, letting us know that some wealth are even wajib, they are compulsory upon us to earn. And that sort of correct the notion where some people think it is sinful to acquire wealth. Some people will say, those kind of jokes. And some people are starting like some brothers and, they have tendency to be lazy and they hide under the fact that, I want Shizuf Dini. Thank you very much for shedding light on that. I have a couple of questions here. Abu Amira, do you have questions on your side?
None for now. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
So the question I have, Sheikh, I know we don't have a lot of time. I will just read out. Okay. Ustaz Amabi Latif raised his hand. Yes. So I will read the questions I have and then let Abu Aisha, Ustaz Amabi, to also ask your question. And then so that, Sheikh will try to use the time remaining to ask those questions. So I'll just quickly go. The first question is, are there special du'as to make during financial crisis? That's number one. Number two is that, and after I finish reading some of these questions, I will provide just a little background of, the context around our environment here. The second one is that, can one delay paying zakat, then invest money, to make more money so that you can pay it later? Maybe things are getting tight, towards the end of the year, and if you realize that maybe you lose your job or something, then can one delay paying zakat? And then the third one is that, and these two questions are almost the same thing. Husband forcing their wives to work because, the financial situation is, and it happens, here, there's a lot of bills that you continue to pay, bills that we never experienced paying in Nigeria. The other question is that, wife saying she can't spend from her money. Allah said that, you should be responsible. What is the, what is the, kawama if you can't? I'm working my money. And Ustaz, this has generated, marital issues here and there before. So I think these are the questions. And some of the context is that, financial crisis, people are losing their jobs. There is, inflation, there is recession coming. So anxiety is getting off. So am I being making more rush on question you? So
no. I'll let me take them. Should I start taking them? But you have to be reminding me because I didn't try them.
Yeah. Let me allow Abu Aisha to ask his question and then.
Okay.
Hello, assalamu
alaikum.
Sorry, during the course of your lecture, you quoted one verse of Holy Quran, which I don't know how it related to what was saying.
No.
I think it's Surah Talaq. I don't know.
Yeah.
How it related to. Can you explain?
Beautiful. Yes, it's good. Because I was in a bit of a hurry, and then a bit tired. I would have delved and explained why I got the verse. So let me explain now. So it's good came up in the question in the QA. The verse was actually talking about women that we've divorced, right? It's as you mentioned, Surah Talaq, that is divorce. Now, Allah was saying that askinuhunna min haythu sakantum min wujudikum, that give your wives shelter, right? Divorced wives, right? Divorced wives. The verse started that ya nabi idha talaqtumun nisaa and fataliquhunna li'iddatihinna wala tukhrijuhunna min buyutihin wala yakhrujna illa an ya'tina bi fahishatin. That was how the verse started. You divorce a woman, I divorce you, she has to stay, do the iddah in the home. If she was pregnant, she has to be there in the home till she gives birth. Now, Allah is now saying that, emphasizing that your divorced women should be given shelter during the iddah, for the duration of the iddah. The ulama said that, look, if the divorced woman has a right to shelter, then it means the married woman has a greater right to shelter. This is called mafhum al-muwafaqa, a mafhum awlawi. It's like Allah says, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Do not say oof to your parents. So it says, can I beat them? You will not find, can I beat, you don't beat your parents in the Quran. Or you find, don't even say oof. If you cannot hiss at your parents, it means beating them is more serious. I mean, that's clear, right? So the same thing here. If you have to provide shelter for a divorced woman, it means it is more compulsory on you to provide shelter for a married woman. And that's why it comes in. That look, it is compulsory on you to provide shelter for those who you have married. So that's where it came in. Allah.
No, Jazakallah khairan. So the question, another question came in, but let me allow you to answer those ones that I have asked. Special dua to make during
special dua, I can't think of any now. We have Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-kufr wal faqr. While I seek refuge in you from kufr and faqr. These are some of the adhkar of sabah. Let's take these adhkar seriously. Just sit down and be mindful about them and say them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would use them. And we can make general dua. We can read Surah Al-Baqarah and ask Allah, I read this Baqarah, use it to accept my dua. I need money. Right? There's another verse people usually point to in Surah Al-Nuh, where Nuh was telling the people, look, believe, and he said, فَقُلْتُ اسْتَغْفِرُ رَبَّكُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفَّارًا. He said, go, I ask Allah to forgive you. He is the oft forgiving. يُرْسِلُ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِدْرَارًا وَيُمْدِدُكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ وَبَنِينَ وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ جَنَّاتٍ وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ أَنْهَارًا. And do a lot of istighfar, Allah would make the rains fall on you, will bring abundant rainfall, and it will increase in children and wealth. So a lot you find people reading and say, look, Allah, just as we promise these people, also, yeah, we can also say all this general dua, beg Allah in our sujood that, oh Allah, do not allow this financial crisis to affect us seriously. So these are the ones I can think of now. We can pick up other books of adhkar for specific dua. No. Then can I delay zakah, right? Can I delay zakah? No, you can't delay zakah because zakah is not something you just pay on the spot. You've had this wealth with you for a year. If you've had it with you for a year, at that time you have to give it, right? So what you give at that time will not affect you. Just believe that, look, this is what is compulsory on me now, and you give it out. You should not delay zakah because you are expecting a financial crisis. So there's no reason for that. Telling our women to work. If the crisis is so serious, then look, people are going to go hungry, and then she has the capability to work. However, a woman working has rules and regulations. We cannot say because there's no water, I will now drink acid, right? As one of my Sheikh will say, Sheikh, he will say, look, because you can't find water, I can't decide to drink acid. No. If a woman is going to work, then we have rules and regulations. It must be based on necessity, on need. The work that she wants to do must preserve her dignity as a Muslim woman. She must be able to wear the hijab or the khimar or the niqab, whatever if she wants to do work. And she must not be exposed to harassment. These are the conditions scholars will lay down. There must be a need. It must be, I mean, it can't say, okay, because there's problem and there's financial crisis, okay, go and work as a street dancer. None of us here would accept that because it's crazy. How can it all be go? So the same way, right? Because we find street dancing opposition morally abhorrent. It's the same way if our woman will be working as a secretary to a man, they're going to be in seclusion. It's the same. Even if nothing happens, it's abhorrent. So it's a stain on dignity of a Muslim woman. So what work are we asking our Muslim women to do? So this is very essential. If there's necessity to do that, yes, it's permissible, but under these strict conditions I've talked about. If she says it's her money, she's right. If she says it's her money, she's right. She's not required to spend on your home 5 kobo. That is why we are the men. That is why we labor. And that is why when women complain, this is the reason why we need to talk about some of these things. Like at times women would complain, it's a man's world, you guys do this. No, it's not a man's world. We labor to get this world. In this circumstances, the woman is making it may happen that she's not affected with the crisis at all. But she's not liable to spend on the family. However, would ask her to be merciful, right? Be merciful to your husband, be merciful to your children, assist in the home. Or else we'll teach your husband what he can do.
Allah Akbar. Ayakallah.
So let us be. Some women, she knows you do not have. Instead of her to give you the money, even if she still collects her own, and then when she gives you, she'll still be recording it Monday 5K, Tuesday. So there's that even if you have money, all you go into the depths. Then when the man has the money, she just bring a very long list and say, Abu, you want to cry that look, the money I just got. I am this woman. So let us be merciful. Do not forget that on a serious note, that our relationship as husband and wife, husband and wife, is based on Allah says, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Love and mercy. Love and mercy. Let us be merciful to each other. May Allah assist us all.
Ameen. Sheikh, I have 1, 2, 3 questions here. Sister Rahima, thank you for that message in the chat. Okay, I will ask this question. I will ask Sheikh. I'm sure Sheikh is also seeing. So the question that came directly to me, one says that can Sheikh address or advise on how best to navigate issues? Okay, I think you have answered that. When wife earns more than the husband. And
no, don't. It's our wealth. It's our wealth. One thing I've seen really is that even if your wife is earning more than you, right, let your wife respect you, right? So much so that you will not even need to ask before she does it. If we look at the fact that our wife earns more than us, and then we start wanting to put our hands in our money, she would lose respect ultimately. I feel that, okay, look, you just want to get my money. But ordinarily, I think in a loving relationship and a good woman, she will naturally, I mean, what I know of women, if they love their man, there's nothing they will not give. If they love and respect their man. So she's richer than me, doesn't mean anything. I'm the man, I'm responsible. I do what I'm able to do, and I'll appeal to her. In fact, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, his wife was richer than him, and then she wanted to give zakah, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, look, give me that zakah. I deserve it more than another person. Some men would have strong head and they will not. No, you better collect it. So the woman said, I will tell the prophet. And the prophet said, look, your husband has more rights because you are giving zakah. You're also, bringing the family together. So we should just maintain respect. Our women will respect us even with their wealth. That'll make it easy. There's a question in the chat. How do you balance saving for the future, helping the family or friend requested for help, which take precedence? See, I don't know how the financial guys talk about it, but they also leave a portion for charity. Whatever your income is, break it down to what goes into savings. I've forgotten the percentages now. Put it what goes into savings, what is going to be spent on the home, and then leave a portion for charity. Whenever that portion for charity is exceeded, then you don't need to spend anything again, unless in cases of necessity. Because the fact of the matter is that, look, if you want to spend on charity, you don't have anything again, you spend everything because people are only, because the crisis is everywhere. You're going to spend everything. So have a portion you're going to earmark as this is what I'm going to do. We need to up our game as regards personal finance. Have an idea of not spending beyond our means. And then in the West, it's very easy for you to spend above your means. Credit cards. I mean, these people know how to do their business. They give you loans that the interest seems so small, and then it becomes a problem over time. May Allah assist us.
I mean, I think I don't have any direct questions here. Someone said he asked questions from side. I ask your question. I don't know what question from side means. Let me read this comment.
I was one asking the question, yeah, but Sheikh in a way has already answered the question. Someone sent a question in, and the person was saying that it's more like a comment that it's good to save, but some people become so stingy even to themselves, and charity will be wala. And the fact and guilt that you have means to save life while you are saving for tomorrow, and that you might end up not seeing that tomorrow.
And charity is also saving. Charity is also saving. People don't realize that at times giving charity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use it to also assist you. May Allah assist us.
Allahumma. Thank you very much, Ustad. I know it's time for Ishai on your side. Our sister Rahima asked a question, but I think you have answered. She said, "What if it is borrowed that he borrow, uncle?"
We should pay back. We should pay back. When we take money from our wife.
I know
Oh,
you.
yeah, so.
May Allah assist us to pay back.
Lahuma, I mean, you have said it, that, mawadatan wa rahma, once you relate with love, and mercy amongst ourselves.
No.
Yeah, a lot of things will be solved. Eshegon, Jazakumullah khairan. I think we can release you if we have questions.
Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.